Sir, talk about Ambedkar role in making Indian Constitution or making India also, because that is one of the key document to keep India united. So how do you see?
No, my point in this particular context is to argue that there should be a serious attempt to assess Ambedkar and Ambedkar's contribution as a political thinker, and what are his ideas, and what is his contribution to the making of India, what is his contribution to the making of this democracy. So if you are assessing Ambedkar in that sense, then obviously what is Ambedkar's contribution to the making of this constitution, that also will come. So because they have not assessed Ambedkar, because they have not recognized Ambedkar, because they have not taken Ambedkar seriously, you don't have any documentation of what is Ambedkar's contribution in the making of constitution. So in fact, people in the Dalit movement, people in the civil rights movement have pointed out that abolition of untouchability, provisions for reservations, and state directive principles and fundamental rights, and many other aspects, many other fundamental aspects of the constitution. And Ambedkar's role was there. He insisted and he argued for many of those kind of provisions, not only for the Dalit related provisions, but also the provisions related to fundamental rights, democratic values, because he was such a democrat by his own beliefs and by his own practice. So he argued for all those points in the constitution, despite there is a strong opposition from the conservative groups. And something like Hindu Code Bill, he has been arguing and arguing, but he could not succeed. Even after independent India, he could not succeed. So if you have to think of Ambedkar's contribution to the making of India and making of Indian democracy, in that context, his own contribution to constitution is very, very important. But on the other hand, now that it became a very touchy issue about Ambedkar and constitution making, the leaders have always argued that Ambedkar's real constitution is not the Indian constitution. Ambedkar's real constitution is states and minorities, where you have nationalization of land, where you have very different set of issues, where you have state socialism as the ideal. So Ambedkar's constitution is states and minorities. But because he could not translate states and minorities into the constitution, he could not incorporate all these provisions, he could argue to the extent that that was possible with the conservative forces within the Constituent Assembly. That is why he was able to kind of bring some provisions into the constitution. So in that sense, the Indian constitution is not a constitution that Ambedkar would have liked. It's not 100% approved by Ambedkar. This is the point that Dalits have to recognize today, that it's a constitution that Ambedkar was part of, and he negotiated for certain fundamental rights and certain democratic values, and it's an important kind of contribution that he made. If Ambedkar was not there, abolition of untouchability and reservations and state directive principles and some of the fundamental rights would not have been part of the constitution. That is one important point. The second point is that if we have to think about Ambedkar's vision of the constitution, Ambedkar's version of the constitution, that I think you really have to locate in his writings, and as well as the states and minorities. So that is also important. But because now it has become a very sentimental kind of an issue, in the sense that everybody is denying Ambedkar's contribution, even the minimum contribution that he made at various places. So they are not even acknowledging that he is part of the constitution making. So then you have to cling to the idea that Ambedkar Indian constitution is Ambedkarite constitution. So in fact, Indian constitution benefited from Ambedkar being the chairperson, because his democratic vision informed the constitution. That I would say. But Ambedkar's constitution would be states and minorities and many other kind of democratic and other values that he argued in his writings.
Thanks a lot.